What's up, everybody? It's your boy, the Italian Stallion, here for another episode of Rebels with a Cause. You know what time it is, baby. It is time for the cause, because you know that cause don't stop when the clock hits zero. Tonight, I don't know how long I'm going to go for. I know that Shane could not make it tonight. I know Two Pair had a previous engagement that he was going on, so I'll just kind of do what I wanted to do. Talk about the tournament. Anybody that's watching live or recorded, definitely share your thoughts on what you thought about the bracket. I'm going to say this much: it was a very weird tournament. Not that it wasn't exciting, but you didn't have those buzzer beaters. You didn't have the Cinderellas. You have a lot of chalk that happened, and it's really ironic because last week I was mentioning about how realistically I was thinking my bracket was too chalky, so I was calling for some upset. I'm going to admit some of the stupidest upsets I made, honestly, here in a moment. But got to do some housekeeping business as always. Just want to always just point out that the views and opinions of this program are not affiliated with those of any other organization or of West High School. These are solely the RWAC Crew's views. That's myself, the Italian Stallion, Two Pair Tate, Brian Tate, and the coach himself, the stats guy, Mr. Shane O'Mac. Speaking of Two Pair, I want to give him a shout out for his birthday. It was on Monday. I hope everybody wished him a happy birthday. I hope he had a beautiful birthday. Would love for him to come on and get some love. And if you guys are on here live or recorded, show him that love anyway, and so forth like that. Because we were very lucky to both get around the sun when we've lost so many friends, teammates, family members, and it's just one of those things. But also, I want anybody that's watching this show, don't be shy. Join the chat box live. I want to know if we've said something inaccurately, or also, voice your opinions. What do you think about this tournament? I know that the Rebels with a Cause bracket didn't do so hot, but when you're talking about, we were really going with majority, coin flips, it's that type of thing. It's a crazy tournament, but nonetheless, it was still fun to watch. But I hope people voice their opinion as always. Also, got to give a shout out to Kim Castle and the King's Chamber over there on the Pike. Give her a call, pay them a visit. They do manicures, pedicures, the haircuts, beard trims. You get 2 tasty beverages on your visit. So give them a call, schedule an appointment, and see if they can fit you in and give you that royal treatment. Also, want to give some love to a fellow West High alum, class of 2003, Mr. Alex Thatcher and his Knoxville Coffee Company. They're in the heart of Marble City off of Sutherland Avenue. That brew is good any time of the day. So definitely go check them out, get you some, and let them know that Rebels with a Cause sent you. Also want to give a shout out to Razor Shop Barbershop in Knoxville. See Josh Fink or Corey. Coming up, guys. April 26th. That's like a month away. It's hard to believe. Haircuts for prom with Miss Rice. If you haven't asked anybody, make sure you've got your date, got your dinner reservations, because it's going to be a fun time, especially for you seniors. And I hope you partake in it. I really do. I had a very awesome prom my senior year. Not so much my junior year, but my senior year was fantastic. And shout out to Heather Blackburn, who was my prom date at that time. So, but anyway, with that being said, so NCAA tournament. We've got the Sweet 16 games are starting tomorrow night. I believe that the first game to get us started is going to be on CBS between Alabama and BYU, that's being played in Newark, New Jersey, over there in Newark, the East region. And then 30 minutes after that game, the Duke Blue Devils take on the Arizona Wildcats. So the winner of those two will meet Saturday in the Elite Eight for the right to go to the Final Four. So that's pretty exciting stuff there. In the other game, you've got the Gators taking on Maryland on TBS, followed by Arkansas, who's kind of the surprise team. If there is a team, is a surprise, Arkansas Razorbacks. We did not have them really going that far, maybe beating Kansas, but certainly not losing, so certainly not beating St. John's. And man, I'll tell you, they they went out there and did it. And realistically, Calipari's writing a story right now and so forth. So, what's up, Carrie? How you doing? Hey, listen, my Final Four is still intact as well. By the way, it is. I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like after tomorrow or even Friday, but for right now, it's intact, and we can talk about it. Definitely, give me your Final Four again. Write it up there. I want to make sure that we up there and so forth. Uh, Kerry Reeves is our guy here. He participated in the Rebels with a Cause bracket. It didn't look so hot, but the problem is that this is a tournament that is a crapshoot. You don't know how the refs are going to call the games. You don't know who's going to be available injury wise, who gets hurt during the games. These TV timeouts are longer. I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to point out that it is a very hard tournament to win. It's a very, very hard tournament to win. So, but that being said, that I was dead wrong with some of my picks, but as I was saying, so those are the games tomorrow night in the West region, rather I should say. That the West region has the Gators, who almost lost to Connecticut, but I think that Connecticut team, I mean, they were going for a three-peat for a reason. And the interesting thing is that the theme last year we all joked around was back to back. The fact that back to back. The Chiefs went back to back. Alcoa Tornadoes in basketball. Fulton in basketball. There were so many teams that went back to back, and this year they all three peats went kaput. West obviously didn't do it. The Chiefs didn't do it. Alcoa and Fulton came up short. So it's a very, very difficult to win three in a row. And listen, just to win one is something special. So let's just be real. But anyway, the Gators in Maryland play tomorrow night on TBS. They're followed 30 minutes after by the Arkansas Texas Tech game. And realistically, the SEC got 7 teams in. So they had a record 14, and 7 of them have made it to the Sweet 16, and they all have an opportunity to at least maybe all go to the Final Four in their respective regions. I don't see that happening. I have 3 out of the 4 of coming from the SEC, and that's Tennessee, Florida, and Auburn. And then I have Duke coming out of the East or what have you. But, Duke could lose tomorrow night to Arizona. You could also have Alabama, who is playing really good. Grant Nelson looked like he wasn't that hurt when they needed him. And the thing is, do you like offense or do you like defense? And that's what you're going to see if Alabama and Duke match up, which would be a very, very fun matchup, especially between 2 coaches in Oates and Shire, young guys coming up through the ranks. So, yeah. Kerry had Duke, Florida, Tennessee, and Michigan State. Let me tell you this, Kerry. I think you got a great chance at it. I mean, I'm not so sold on Auburn tomorrow night against Michigan. Remember, I did say that I thought the Wolverines would lose to UC San Diego. It was an interesting game, but obviously Michigan had enough. But Michigan's kind of like, it's almost setting up to be an all Michigan final. And Jalen Rose said that the Fab Five would be there in attendance should that happen in the South region. But speaking of that, interesting enough, the South region tomorrow night, Auburn obviously plays Michigan. That game is going to be on CBS, followed by the Ole Miss Michigan State. And let me tell you something, that Ole Miss team, they look great. Chris Beard, I'm telling you guys, Texas has not gotten over losing Chris Beard. Honestly, I mean, I know he was at Texas Tech, got them to the championship game, went to Texas, had some problems, allegations that didn't go right. They hired the assistant to try to keep it going. And now he's out. And Chris Beard's at Ole Miss, and they're playing with house money right now. A lot of people, including us, thought North Carolina would knock them out, and they dominated that game. I don't know what they were doing that last 13 minutes to make it interesting, but Mississippi looked great, and then they just blew Iowa State off the court. Iowa State wasn't at full strength, but again, you go with what you got, guys. I mean, simple as that. So, but that being said, I mean, it should be an unbelievable Sweet 16 tournament, and then not to be left out. Obviously, the Midwest. We've got Houston taking on Purdue on TBS, and then obviously the Vols in Kentucky, the other game. Tennessee needs to get some revenge there. They've already dropped two, once in Tennessee, once in Rupp against the Wildcats. I think the Vols get it done this time. But truth be told, Kentucky's a little bit in Tennessee's head, and there's a lot to be said about that. It's hard to beat a team three times. It's hard to beat a team twice. And you're even seeing a rematch with Duke and Arizona tomorrow night when Duke beat them early in the year. Both teams are completely different. So you almost have to throw those matchups out. I would do the same with Tennessee and Kentucky. But realistically, Indianapolis tomorrow night, I don't know how it's going to go, or Friday night rather, because, there's an advantage to playing the late game if a team that you don't want to win leaves. Hear me out on this. If somehow if somehow Purdue does beat Houston tomorrow night, and here's the thing, here's the thing, Friday, it's not impossible. Indianapolis is right there, and Purdue basically has a home game as a 4 seed. I mean, they did not do Houston any justices by putting them there, or Purdue as the 4 seed. Maybe they thought, like we did, Clemson was going to knock them out. Clemson didn't even get out of the first round. They've scored 13 points at the half, played like gangbusters in the second half, but it was too short, and they were promptly eliminated by McNeese. Say all that tomorrow night, you're going to have a lot of Tennessee fans. I keep saying tomorrow night. I mean Friday night, guys. Friday night, Houston plays first against Purdue. Going to be a lot of Purdue fans there. Not saying Houston doesn't travel, but you're going to have a lot of orange in the stands too, waiting for their game. You're going to have a lot of big blue in that stands as well. And if things get close, you can bet your ass that the Tennessee and the Kentucky fans are going to be the biggest Purdue Boilermaker fans, just so they don't have to take on Houston. And you could see Houston losing. On the flip side, what about out west or what have you? You've got Florida, Maryland, Texas Tech, and Arkansas. I mean, there's really nobody that has an advantage out there. But everybody would obviously love to see Florida lose since they are one of the big favorites. It's going to be interesting how that crowd dictates and influences the referee calls. It's a lot of things to keep in mind and so forth. And I'd love to see how these teams are the powerhouses going to move on. For example, a lot of people are talking about Duke more now. A lot of people not so sold on Florida and Auburn. A lot of people talking about Tennessee, which they should have been all along. Then you've got some of these other darlings like Ole Miss and Arkansas. Could they sneak in there being a higher seed? But Carrie, thank you for bringing that up. So we play first, then Houston and Purdue play second. Okay, all right. So that's interesting. That's interesting. Thank you for pointing that out. So on the flip side, whoever wins is still going to root for Purdue. So there's going to be a lot of Kentucky fans. Should they get it done, or Tennessee? Obviously, they want to help and play the better team. Here's the funny thing is, it seems like Tennessee can't get away from Purdue, but if this is the year that Tennessee needs to shake that monkey off, this could be the year to do it. Honestly, it really could be a great chance. But me personally, I think it's going to be Houston and Tennessee. It's going to be a physical, defensive. I think the first one that reaches 70 wins the game. And I'm not kidding when I say that, honestly. Kerry also brings up a very good point. It's interesting that the teams that played Thursday and Saturday the first weekend is now playing Friday and Sunday, and vice versa for the teams that played Friday and Sunday are now Thursday and Saturday. Yeah. And can I tell you something really interesting, Kerry? What I really find interesting is there's only one team that played Thursday and Saturday last weekend that's playing Thursday and Saturday this weekend. And that has to be the BYU Cougars because of their religion and being Mormon, and out of respect, they are not allowed to play games on Sunday. That's their day of rest. Should be everybody's day of rest, but to each his own. So the NCAA had to do something to put them in a pod that the games were not only Thursday and Saturday for them, should they continue on winning, but they had to go to a bracket that was also a Thursday, Saturday deal. Why they weren't put out west, I don't understand. Maybe they didn't want to give them that much of a geographical advantage, because technically them would be make more sense being in the west. However, they've got to fly across country to Newark, New Jersey to take on Alabama, which should be an electric matchup. You talk about both teams going about nine deep. Um, Alabama's got about six guys that are in double figures, though, and obviously the greatness of Sears as their point guard. Grant Nelson, we've mentioned all them, young blood. But the thing is that these teams are having to travel across the country. I mean, Arizona didn't get done with Oregon well after midnight. That was Seattle, which was 9 o'clock their time. After their media obligations and everything, they didn't get home till Arizona till probably in the early morning of Monday. Then they had to take a flight yesterday to get to Newark, New Jersey. So what's Arizona's legs going to be like to take on a Duke team that didn't have to go very far? Duke was done early Sunday, took a bus back to Durham 30 minutes down the road, and took a flight promptly. Had all day Monday, Tuesday, took a flight last night to get to do their media obligations and everything today, and do their practice and shoot around. So, that's something to really think about. And a great point, Carrie, that you brought up, a great point, and here's the thing. Florida's got to travel across the country on a short week too, and they were in a dogfight, just like Arizona. So, these kids are resilient. These kids are resilient, and there is something to be said about winning a tight game. And, Duke right now, I mean, they won their first game by 44 points. They won their second game by 23. It looked like they didn't even break a sweat. I just read Malik Brown is going to be back for them, in some capacity, their best defender. So anything he can give them on the defensive side of the ball, he's not much of a scorer. I mean, that's a 6'8" guy that can guard 1 through 5. I mean, that's pretty big. And in this tournament, length and height matter. So it's something to keep an eye on. It's going to be a tough game for Duke tomorrow night. Arizona's been a spoiler to some better Duke teams in the past. And I would not be surprised if it happened again. That's the what this journey and dream of this tournament's all about. But at the same time, this Duke team looks focused. Auburn. I'm going to talk about Auburn for a second. I don't know what they're doing. I'm going to put my animosity and my rivalry with Bruce Pearl, even though it's only one-sided. He doesn't even remember who I am. I'm guarantee that. But the truth of the matter is that I have never seen a coach do less with talent. That team is too talented to even have been in that ball that Alabama State was even sniffing them. Honestly, they got it together a little bit against Creighton in the second half, but even that game was close. So what my point is Michigan could beat them. I mean, Michigan's coached by a hell of a coach, and they they're like that team that could really spoil your bracket, and they really believe in themselves. They've got a great fan base. The funny thing is, though, I think is that you've got Michigan State there as well. So Sparty's going to be rooting against the Wolverines. They ain't going to be rooting for them. But you could have an all Michigan matchup in the Elite Eight, which would be very, very special in my opinion. But to each his own, honestly. So yeah, yeah. Yeah, Duke won. Duke. Apparently, I think that game was at Arizona. It was a home and home that they played. Carrie. Yeah, and Arizona went to Duke last year, and that Duke team last year was horrendous. I mean, Kyle Filipowski. I mean, no disrespect. I mean, this Duke team, I think, could beat last year's Duke team by 30 points. They were a terrible team, and how they got to the Elite Eight, they were promptly shown the door against NC State, but I'm telling you, I think this Duke team is way more hombre, men, cojones than what you had whiners last year. I mean, honestly. Arizona, on the flip side, they lost some guys from last year. I still don't know how we didn't get a North Carolina Arizona matchup that we were all talking about. Instead, we got surprised with the Alabama Clemson matchup that was the right to lose to Connecticut in the Final Four, but both those teams made it. But going back to Auburn real quick, I don't know what Auburn team you're going to get tomorrow. I just don't know. I just don't know what you're going to get. But if it happens, it happens. Auburn can win. by a bunch or they could lose. It wouldn't surprise me. But again, I'm really looking at that coaching matchup on Friday night between Pearl and Michigan's coach to see what happens. Two Pair said it best on the show a couple of weeks ago, or actually last week. He said that guy is a great motivator, but 94 feet, X's and O's, not his thing. And he's got something that he's got to prove to see if that really is the case. I believe. They mentioned that he was a National Coach of the Year candidate, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, but what are you giving him? What have they won? They won the SEC regular season. My hat's off to them. They didn't win the SEC tournament. They got the number one overall seed. They beat a bunch of quad one teams. But the thing is Pearl is also having to overcome. Can you get your guys there? This National Coach of the Year award should be presented at the end to see who really completed the mission. I mean that. I mean that. And I'm not just hating on Pearl. He can prove me wrong. He should prove. He's got one of the best rosters in the country. Flip a coin between Broom and Flag for National Player of the Year. When you have somebody that talented, it should make your job very easy as a coach. It should. And they shouldn't lack motivation. They got their ass shown out in the first round last year. Many teams we've seen lose in the first round, come back and win it the next year and win it all. I think about Duke in 2015. They lost to Mercer that year before in the first round, a 3-14 upset. Duke comes back the next year, wins it all. I think about Virginia, the heartbreak in losing to Baltimore, Maryland, the first 1 seed to lose to a 16. The next, somehow, national title, that boring brand of basketball, won the national title. Then think about Purdue. Purdue didn't win it all, but Purdue became the second number 1 seed to lose to a 16 and goes all the way and runs into a buzzsaw of Connecticut like everybody last year, but still got there. So there shouldn't be any lack of motivation for Auburn not wanting to prove to be there, at least get to the Final Four or get to the championship game. There's some great teams ahead of them, but realistically, you've got the talent. You've got a master motivator of a coach. You've got a very, very rabid fan base that's starving for a victory when their football has not been as great as of late. I mean, come on, Yep. Dustin May, thank you. Yep. Yeah, he was that Florida Atlantic coach. Yeah, he was the Florida Atlantic coach that upset Tennessee in Madison Square Garden and got themselves to the Final Four. And again, they ran into a San Diego State team that just made one more shot than they did, and obviously it was the Connecticut first championship when Miami was there too. And then you think about all those players from that Florida Atlantic. Walter Clayton is on the Gators now instead of Florida Atlantic. So very, very interesting. Very, very, very interesting stuff. Carrie, and I appreciate you bringing it. Honestly, man. And thank you for correcting me on those games, the game times. That's the other thing too. It was very interesting how they came up with the game times too, in my opinion. For example, the thing is that I know that there's certain brands that get the respect. Hear me out. Obviously, Duke was going to be on CBS. What I'm surprised about is why Tennessee and Kentucky is not on CBS. I mean, maybe not Tennessee in basketball, but Kentucky, a blue blood, and you put them on TBS? I mean, make that make sense for me. Honestly, I get that Auburn is the number 1 overall seed, but realistically, you can find them on TBS. They've not won a national championship in basketball. I mean, Kentucky has won 7 of these things and competed for numerous others. Duke, obviously another blue blood, and they're playing Arizona. That makes sense to be on CBS. But I was just very shocked that the Tennessee and Kentucky game was on TBS and not on CBS for obvious reasons. So yep. Johnny Davis is at Arkansas as well. Thank you for pointing that out. And that's the other thing too. I mean, the Arkansas Texas Tech matchup, I think that's probably the least talked about game. But the thing is if you haven't seen Texas Tech, they are physical. They play hella defense. Arkansas is finally putting it together. They're not freshmen anymore. This is not a young team, and they're battle tested. And I think somebody mentioned that ever since they lost to Kentucky, they have really turned it around in SEC play. I mean, it's all about matchups. It's about luck. And listen, no disrespect, they kicked St. John's ass. I don't know what Patino was doing sitting his star player, even though he claims his player had only made 3 shots at 3 for 20. I mean, let me just tell you this. You go with what got you there, man. I mean, maybe they still hit a shot. I know that Florida wasn't hot there. And can I talk about Florida real quick? And I'm sorry I'm all over the place, but Florida, realistically, the other night against Connecticut, I saw a lot of their deep talent standing around waiting for Clayton to make a play. And thank God he did, or they would have been shown the door. And you still might be talking about this three-peat possibility with Connecticut. Dan Hurley, don't even get me started on that guy. I mean, this is a guy that cried, and you just won 2 championships. I get you get emotional, but when you tell the refs effed you, no. Florida made one more play than you guys did. I saw so many bricks thrown up by your players that could have decided that game a long time ago. It's facts. You were missing layups. They were too. I mean, I think both teams were nervous. It was a noon game on Sunday. So, it's hard to go early you know, and basically it's 2 teams that have a history against each other. But yeah, so Kerry writes, Auburn needs to win after getting the shortest possible trip to a regional site, 2-hour drive to Atlanta. You're right. You're right. Yes, Duke might have a home game with all their alumni up there in New Jersey, but they still had to take a flight. It is only in an easy drive, just interstate to Atlanta. You're right. You're absolutely right, Kerry. So something to think about. Something to think about indeed. Glad you pointed that out. So my thoughts are this, it's going to be an exciting tomorrow and Friday. As much as maybe the Thursday and Friday of the first round wasn't as exciting because you didn't have the matchups. I do want to talk about this though. What happened to all the upsets? I will say this: there were upsets. Who the hell would have predicted that Clemson would only score 13 points? I want you to think about that, guys. Theoretically, you should be able to score at least a point a minute in the first half. There's 20 minutes in it. Each team gets a possession, 30 seconds on the shot clock. Even if you make a couple threes to spell maybe a couple minute drought, you should get to at least 20. They got to 13. On the other side of the coin, they did manage to score the opposition 56-32. The problem was they still fell 2 points behind, and that was the difference in the game. To further talk about it is that look at Louisville, who didn't even show up. And we on this program really had high hopes for Louisville. We even thought they get by Creighton, it's going to be a home game against Auburn. But we didn't get to see it. So, again, the first round had some drama. It just didn't have the drama maybe we've been used to in the past. And somebody else brought up an interesting point. I'm going to give credit to him. Seth Greenberg, who I don't really like, but he's stuff. He's got a really high bracket percentage right now. He said it best. He thinks that if college basketball doesn't change right now, this is going to be the norm for the tournament. That there are not going to be guys that are going to be sticking around for these small schools for 4 years. They're going to maybe make their mark in a tournament in a one and done situation, or, a couple years, and then someone's going to snag them up and pay them some big time NIL money, especially if maybe a guy you recruited didn't quite pan out. I can't believe that we already have 1,700 kids in the transfer portal. It just opened up on Monday. There's still 16 teams playing. You can even make a case that there's even some teams in the NIT. Gross, but it still is. And you have kids that didn't even barely wait till they got on the bus to announce that they were in the transfer portal. Like that kid from Vanderbilt. 45 minutes after they lost, I'm putting my name in the transfer portal. It hadn't even opened up yet, and he announces it on his Twitter. I mean, it's crazy. There's no loyalty anymore. You know, we don't even know who's going to be on Tennessee's team next year. You'd like to think that some guys stick around, you know, but Jonas A. Arkansas, it's working out okay so far. But come on, you know? I mean, all I'm saying, guys, is I miss the old days. Yeah, you had guys go straight to the pros. I get that. But you didn't have them going to another team. And here's the other thing, too. Once upon a time, guys had to sit out for a year. It's incredible. It's incredible. I mean, I miss those old games. And according to Greenberg, because you won't have these mid majors have these studs anymore because they're going to be option 5 in the starting lineup or the sixth man coming off the bench that needs a sharpshooter. And it's about who's got the NIL money and who's more organized right now. And, luckily for Tennessee, they've got a coach that gets it. You see a bunch of other coaches for other teams that say, "I've had enough, done." And, the younger group are trying to navigate it. Texas is going in with Sean Miller. He had some issues with some allegations and things like that. NC State went with Will Wade. So now these programs can kind of get away with the stuff now. These coaches who have been kind of reprimanded, they can get away with this stuff. So what I think you're going to have is you're not going to have the excitement of maybe a lower seed beating a higher seed. Anything can happen. You could have a major injury and that suck the life out of the team and be the end of that. But my point is that I think from now on, you're going to get a very star-studded matchup of higher seeds. And by higher seeds, I mean like the best of the best, the 1 through 4s. And it's mano-a-mano and see who wins. And you're going to see more and more of that, especially if the blue blood programs are organized in doing what they need to do. North Carolina just had their point guard who was featured on a hotel commercial just walk out, literally. I mean, it's very symbolic. The band wasn't playing for him, but he walked out. And now his mom and brother are on social media talking about the horrors of what he went through his 2 years at Carolina, shaming the team. They had a backup center that didn't pan out, that was a 4 or 5-star guy, and he entered himself in the portal. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. They've apparently extended Davis, who our friend of the show, Larry Frank, who's a big Tar Heel fan, can't stand. They've just now hired a man to be in charge of their NIL program, a general manager, as they call it, to see if they can get what they need to compete against Duke and the rest of the ACC. Yet they finished 5th overall with that team. So that just shows how bad the ACC was this past year. Louisville and Clemson didn't help their case. So, right now, Duke is the only team not in the Big 12, Big 10, SEC. Everybody else is a Big 12, Big 10, or SEC member. I already mentioned the 7 for the SEC, but think about that. They basically made up half of the Sweet 16 field, the SEC did. Big 10, Big 12 make up the majority of the rest of it, and then there's Duke, the one ACC team. There's no Big East. There's no WCC. Pac-12 doesn't exist anymore. I mean, none of those other conference people that had, there's no AAC, which traditionally in the past has had a Temple or a Memphis or someone like that. They're not in there either. It's all about the big conferences. I'm even seeing some talk about the ACC and the Big East merging, at least in basketball, and creating some matchups between the St. John's and Dukes, and Duke in Connecticut, Connecticut, North Carolina, Creighton in North Carolina. I get that, but football still rules everything, guys. It still does. That's why you have the teams and the conferences that you do. Football is still the moneymaker. Not saying basketball doesn't, but something interesting to think about. Something very, very interesting to think about. Some other things that stood out to me in that first and second round was the fact that there's certain coaches that once again prove they choked. Penny Hardaway over at Memphis. I know that he's kind of the son of Memphis and everything like that, but with the talent that they've had over there, and I know that they had the unfortunate injury to their point guard, but my God, I mean, I just have not seen a guy do less with so much talent. They don't even get, and I think part of it is they don't get tested in the conference that they play in. I mean that. So, just things that stand out to me. If I'm wrong with anything, definitely, please correct me on the chat. But these were just observations of mine. Um, I'll tell you one thing. I was watching that Arizona Oregon game. I could not believe how slow Oregon was at times. And I don't even know how they won and got a fifth seed. I mean, they beat the bricks off of Liberty. And I'm not saying anything bad about Liberty, but damn, they were terrible. And Arizona, they were up on Arizona like 19-4. Arizona didn't panic and came back and didn't look back. And Oregon missed like 12 free throws. Like that's abysmal. You can't let that happen. And you were in Seattle. I mean, it was basically a home game. The fifth seed had an advantage over the fourth seed, former Pac-12 rivals. But so be it. I mean, I just couldn't believe how bad Oregon was. So, I look at Texas A&M. I don't know how they. I mean, they lost. Michigan beat them, but I for sure thought Buzz Williams was good enough to get them to the Sweet 16, especially with the camaraderie that those guys had had. That was surprising. I think Kansas was the biggest joke all year. Preseason number one, the biggest cancer in the country. Dickinson, literally the biggest cancer. He's like 7'2", and was a 5-star, can't miss coming out of college, or rather to go to college, and done nothing. Done absolutely nothing, but been a pain in the ass. Technicals, I mean, reminds me of Bill Lambier, if anybody remembers that guy from the Pistons. He was on the Bad Boy Pistons, and he was an enforcer big man. Had classic battles with Robert Parrish in the Celtics back in the day. Even Bill Cartwright of the Bulls. So, but I mean, I just can't believe a Bill Self team that happened to them. Just shocked by that. And realistically, next year, if I see Kansas as the preseason number one, I will make sure not to put that bet for dark horse teams to win the national championship. But that was just weird. They just had a very weird season. I look at another team real quick that kind of was disappointing. Um, UCLA. UCLA. They, I mean, Tennessee did what they needed to do, but realistically, I didn't think UCLA was enough to beat Utah State. Just things of that nature. Obviously, North Carolina laid an egg in that first round. Um, a team that I mean, I was proud of my Drake pick. I believe I picked High Point over Purdue. Purdue, in my opinion, I thought was limping into the tournament. And I don't know if it was just the matchups they got. They could get their ass blown out by Houston tomorrow night, or Friday night rather. But my point is I was shocked at Purdue losing what they lost from last year's team. They're playing with house money right now. I mean, losing the National Player of the Year, losing your sixth man to go that transfers to Duke in the NIL portal, you lose another guy, another shooter to graduation, and you now brought back what you brought back, brought in a couple of guys. One of the guys you have ends up being Big Ten Player of the Year, and you're playing with house money basically in your own backyard. I think it's like a 1.5 hour drive from Indianapolis to West Lafayette, maybe 2 hours. and they're the 4 seed. So I would not be surprised if Purdue gets it done. As much flack and criticism Matt Painter gets, I mean, tell me when your coach has led you to a Final Four championship game, and he had them there almost there a couple of years ago when they lost after they beat Tennessee. They lost to Virginia, that 2019 Virginia team. So, I mean, that's just another team that was a disappointment. Illinois, they were top 10 preseason at the beginning of the year. Kentucky beat them. I know that they had some injuries. I know that they had some problems, but again, Baylor was a preseason top 10 team. Duke made them look silly. So the preseason rankings, they're fun, but I just really believe you should have the teams, let them play in these preseason tournaments, make some sexy matchups. I know they're competing with football at the tail end of football in their beginning, but let's talk about this. Gauge the interest. See who's going to be there. And then when January hits, that's when you have a great marketing to, promote the conferences. There's even been talk of maybe having some late season swaps of conferences taking on each other. SEC versus Big Ten, ACC versus Big 12. Anything to get people a little excited about the matchups. SEC was fun as hell to watch this year. Still is. Look at these 7 teams. So, but again, I'm going to pick the games real quick, and anybody that watches or is watching live can chime in as well. But realistically, I'm just doing like a re-bracket, and what is I will go region by region. I'll start tomorrow with where we go, the East region. So Alabama, BYU. I would not be surprised if BYU won this game. I had VCU beating them, but BYU is playing really good. And the thing is, though, is Wisconsin is a different animal than what they're going to face with Alabama. I mentioned that Alabama's got 6 guys that score in double figures. BYU only has 2. Now, BYU does have 8 guys that they play. They're deep. But at the same time, I just think that the physicality of Alabama, the Oats preparing for a few days, I think Alabama gets it done. Could be wrong, but I think Alabama gets it done against BYU. Duke and Arizona, I think it's going to be a very, very tight game. I think Duke just has too many weapons, and I think Duke probably pulls away towards the end of the game and ends up winning by 10, maybe even 11. But don't be surprised if Arizona, shocks them. I don't know. But right now, based on the work, how both teams looked in the first weekend, I'm talking about Duke and Alabama. They were the prohibitive favorites. There was about 7 or 8 teams that were considered they could cut down the nets. Truth be told, you still got about 7 of them in this tournament. You got the 4 SEC teams. You've got Houston. You've got Michigan State, and you've got Duke still left. Don't know what's going to be there come midnight Friday, but you still have these same guys in the conversation. So, but based on what I think right now, I think you've got a Duke-Alabama matchup in the East. And it's basically, do you like Alabama's offense or do you like Duke's defense? Should they meet? It'd be a hell of a game Saturday night. It's going to be a very pro-Duke crowd if that happens up in Newark. And again, I think, like Kerry, got to go with my Final Four. I had Duke in the Final Four, so I think Duke will get it done against Alabama. Close, but, it's a matchup worthy of the damn Final Four, let alone the Elite 8. So there you go. But any 4 of those teams can get there. But realistically, I'm going to go with Duke over Alabama because that's what I had in my bracket. Moving on to the West region. Again, you've got Florida against Maryland. Maryland doesn't have any depth. And and no disrespect to who they played, Grand Canyon was terrible. And Colorado State, gave them a little bit of a game. And then obviously there was that last second shot and, was he traveling? Was he not? But me personally, I think Florida just got the wake up call they needed. Like Carrie said, that's going to be tough for them to go across country on such short rest. Maybe Maryland knocks them off. But realistically, Walter Clayton is the best player on the court for either team. And there's something to be said about when you have the best player on the court. He makes shots like what Walter Clayton did. So, again, I'm going to go with the team I have in the Final Four, which is the Gators. I'm not a Florida fan by any means, but I've got Florida beating Maryland. And I don't even think that game's going to be close. I could see Florida winning by 15 points, honestly. Again, this is going to be your Big Ten versus SEC style of play. Just keep that in mind. The other side of it, Texas Tech and Arkansas. I want to pick Texas Tech. I had St. John's in this game, so I don't have a dog in this fight. I think that Texas Tech could frustrate the hell out of Arkansas, but at the same time, Arkansas is kind of taking this chip on the shoulder and playing really hard for Cal. And, there's a lot to be said that Arkansas could do it, setting up an all SEC final. I think, though, that Texas Tech beats Arkansas. And I think that Florida will beat Texas Tech pretty handily, maybe by 10 to 12. And Florida will get to the Final Four. I believe that. I think their wake-up call happened. I don't foresee them having any issues. And they will be in the Final Four representing the West region. Now, going to the Midwest for the Friday games, I'm going to start with Tennessee versus Kentucky. I think that it's going to be a tight ball game for a half. And then Tennessee's going to realize we're better than this team. And I think that Tennessee gets it done. I think that Tennessee will go out there and avenge the two losses. And I know that fellow Tennessee fans can say this. I'll give you the two regular seasons all game if it meant that beating you gets me in the Elite Eight. So take that 3 times on Sunday. So yeah. So I've got Tennessee beating Kentucky. Probably 5-7 points, honestly. Be back and forth matchup. And two rabid fan bases. Don't know who Houston or Purdue is going to support. But at the same time, if it's a close game, that could make it a home atmosphere for one team over the other, especially with how the refs are going to call the game. But I think Tennessee has enough to get it done. Then you've got Houston versus Purdue. I'm surprised Purdue's here. I really had Clemson. I had Clemson upsetting Houston. But realistically, this Houston team looked very, very good. I don't know what they were doing at the end there against Gonzaga, but Gonzaga was a hell of a team. Gonzaga came out and killed Georgia, if anybody watched that game. Anyway, Gonzaga fought their hearts out, but Houston was a little bit more. This is another matchup that I think Houston had a wake-up call, and I just think Houston's better than Purdue. I really do. I mean, I just think that the defense, I know that we've talked about the Calvin Simpson choke job, but that's going to happen the next round. And so I think Houston gets it done against Purdue. Setting up a Houston versus Tennessee matchup. I like a lot of the 1 versus 2 in the Elite Eight. And realistically, that's how it should be. There's a reason teams got seeded like that. And I just think that Tennessee's due. Rick Barnes gets back to his first Final Four in 22 years. 22 years ago, he took Texas there with TJ Ford and lost in the Final Four. But realistically, I could see him taking out Houston, and Tennessee just has a little bit more offense than I think the defenses match up perfectly. The physicality is perfect for Tennessee, but I think Tennessee's offense with Lanier, they get it done. Sakai, I think that there's a lot to be said about senior leadership at the point guard position. And so I just think that Tennessee, again, got to go with my Final Four pick. Tennessee does just enough to beat Houston and sets up a Final Four matchup with Duke in San Antonio. Moving on to the last region, last but not least, the South. Got Auburn and Michigan, Ole Miss and Michigan State. I would not be surprised to see Michigan win this game. But again, I'm going to go with my bracket because it's still intact when it comes to my Final Four teams. I think Auburn gets it done against Michigan. I think that you'll probably see a tie ball game at the half. Again, you'll have Ole Miss and Michigan State. Maybe Sparty can't stomach rooting for the Wolverines, but if it sets it up an easier matchup for them than playing Auburn, they might just go with their brothers to the west. But east. But my point is that I really believe that I think Auburn gets it done against Michigan and sets it up. In this game, I had Michigan State against North Carolina. I would not be surprised if Ole Miss wins. Ole Miss with Beard, they're going to play some great defense. It's going to be two great coaches in Izzo and Beard. But with a gun to my head, I've got to go with Michigan State. I've got to go with the Spartans. They're playing basketball. They mess around, but when they get it together, they get it together. Very ironic that, that Izzo was really kind of being left for dead. And now he's got a team that could get him back to the Final Four. Again, it's been 25 years since a Big Ten team has won the national championship, and it was them. And they've been to the Final Four and championship games before, and they've laid an egg or gotten whipped. So could this be their year? They'll have to get through possibly 3 SEC teams to do it. And I don't know if they have the physicality or the legs or the personnel to get it done. But they have an us against the back. They're backed against the wall, and they've played great. I thought that they were absolutely crap at the beginning of the year, and they've turned it around. So we'll learn more about them against a very good Ole Miss team. And again, you got another 1 versus 2. Auburn versus Michigan State. Again, I think Izzo could outcoach Pearl any day of the week, but Auburn's got a deeper lineup. I think better talent. And I think if Auburn gets there in Atlanta against Michigan State, it's going to be a lot of Auburn fans there, like Carrie mentioned. And again, I've got to go with the team I picked, Auburn, setting up an Auburn versus Florida rematch on the other side of the bracket. So you would have potentially 3 number 1s and a number 2 seed who could have been easily a number 1 in their own right as well. Have 4 of the 7 or 8 they were saying had what it takes to cut down the nets. And the scary thing is you have 3 of the 4 of the teams that I picked from the same conference that have played each other, and there's a lot to be said about that. I can't even remember the last time. I don't know of I've known of conferences to maybe get 2 teams in the Final Four, but 3, maybe even 4 if Alabama knocks off Duke, or if Duke's not even there and they have to play Arizona. You could have an all Final Four SEC. I don't think that's ever happened before from a conference. And I don't have Shane here to look that up. But I do remember at times where you did have Duke and North Carolina that were both from the ACC playing a couple years ago in Coach K's last game. I remember Duke and Maryland playing years ago, and they were both in the ACC at the time. Maryland's now in the Big Ten. But I'm just trying to think off the top of my head of where could potentially have all teams from one conference in a Final Four. And that would be your story right there. So, but again, let's see what happens next week. I do want to make an announcement, by the way. I do want to make an announcement. And got a few minutes left if anybody wants to chime in on anything. Next week, we're going to have a special guest on the show. And she's super excited. We've been wanting to get her on for a year. And we've been wanting female athletes to come on just as much as we wanted the men to come on. So, anyway, I got 2 pair backstage. He's going to make an appearance. So let's see here. Let's ready to come on. Let me bring on the belated birthday guy and so forth. So
sorry.
man, you're good,
no,
man.
man. I lost track of time. Hold on, give me 1 second. Let me
Yeah,
I'm
no,
gonna get the
you're
shades
live. We
on.
just picked some games.
Yeah.
Carrie's been helping me out with correcting me on some times and the order of the games the next couple days. But I think it's going to be a fantastic Sweet 16 and
It
eventually Elite
is.
Eight. So
It
yeah,
is. How long you've been on here? An hour already? I'm
yeah,
so
yeah.
sorry.
54 minutes. You're okay, man. You're all right.
Dude, I looked at the time.
Good.
I was hanging out
So,
with Jawan Smith
mm,
at the Know You Cafe, right? We
gotcha.
literally, so me and Wes just got out of the studio. I had to pick him up from Charlotte, and he met my aunt and uncle. Shout out to Linda Reed Walton. Shout out to Freeman Walton. You know, Mechanicsville all day, baby.
You
You
bet.
know what I'm
So,
saying? Mechanicsville all day. And actually saw a former West alum, Xavier Davis, who played football and basketball. Incredible athlete.
I remember Xavier Davis. So,
Incredible
okay.
athlete.
All right.
Hey, look at
So.
that stud in the back, though.
I know, right? Doing his best Dan Morgan impression. So look at that. With the horse collar and everything,
But dude,
cowboy collar. So.
I'm really so sorry.
Oh no, man. No,
I
you're
looked at the
good.
time. I'm messaging you like, oh shit, it's Rebels with a Cause.
Oh, God, and if I did, I wasn't ignoring you. I was just so into the. Oh my God. So yeah, no, you're good.
Do
I
you see
just
how
yeah.
we message? Hey,
4 messages. Yeah, we're good.
I'm messaging you like yo. Hey, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Are you picking me up on our date? No, I'm kidding. So anyway, hey, but listen, you know what? I'm glad you're here for. No, you came at the perfect time. Came at the perfect time.
Do you got 30 minutes
I've
or?
got 30 minutes. I can do 30 minutes. I can do
I'm
30 minutes.
sorry, man.
You're good.
Well,
No,
I'm
you're
so.
fine.
Hey, I apologize. Let me apologize to all the West fans if you're watching this. I apologize. I lost track of the time. Uh, Look, time is the most valuable resource that we have, and I don't get out much. It, you know what I mean? Because
Neither do I. So yeah, yeah.
I
I'm
don't,
always at
and
work.
I'm either doing a podcast. I'm either, you know what I'm saying, announcing a ball game, going to a studio, picking up somebody from the airport, taking somebody to the airport, leaving an airport. You know what I'm saying? Like that's my
Yeah.
life now, and I love it. But tonight, when I saw Jawan Smith, when I saw just the people that I played basketball against, you know, just like guys that I knew for years, you know what I'm saying? Corey Balls, I seen him tonight.
Hmm.
Like guys that, you know what I'm saying, Shake Me, Larry Winton, who played under Coach Pecco his freshman year at West. Like all the guys that I played against in the hood were there tonight. And
That's special, man. That's special.
it's
Don't
been a really
apologize for
good
that.
it's been
So
a really good
yeah.
birthday week. My birthday was Monday. And
Yep. And we shouted you at the beginning. We did shout you at the beginning.
I
So yeah, we
appreciate that.
did. So yeah.
Cause you know, we're getting to that age where is there a cord like flying in?
Oh, it's my balloon from my happy birthday. Can you imagine? It wanted to make an appearance on Rebels with a Cause, and the fan just knocked the hell out of it, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I mean,
That's crazy.
that's what happens when you go live. But keep going. No, man, keep going. So,
No, that's
yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah.
No, what I was saying, it's just, you know what I mean? Like, I've learned to really enjoy, you know what I'm saying, life. Cause we're getting at that age, man. Like, you don't get to see people anymore. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
no, you don't.
I definitely don't. Like, dude, I saw a classmate of mine from like middle school, elementary school, who bumped into me
Hmm.
and didn't even realize they knew who I was. Like that's the kind of,
Wow.
you know what I mean? Like
What do you make
you
of that? What do you make of that? I mean, do you think it's weird that I got the memory I do? Because, like, realistically, I know we've changed a little bit over the years, but I can kind of gaze somebody and be like, is that who I think it is? Like, you know what I mean? Maybe I don't know her name, or maybe I don't know his name, but he looks familiar. I know I went to West with him or played against them. They went to a rival school around my time. I mean, so yeah, I mean, but
it's just wild to even think that like we getting at that age where it's like
yeah. And I said that too at the beginning too, Pear. I said we're blessed that we made it around the sun one more year when we've had so many friends, teammates, everything that not make it, and you
Yeah,
appreciate. I mean, I mentioned that at the beginning, so yeah. But
yeah.
I'm glad you're here so we can make the announcement together
What's that?
because I spoke to her today. She's excited as hell, and she will be on the show next Wednesday night at
Tinian?
9:30. The one, the only, beautiful Miss Tinian Reed. And
Clap
if
it
I'm
up,
not
clap it up, clap it
mistaken,
up.
wait, and if I'm not mistaken, please correct me because you know this stuff. She was Miss West 2000, wasn't she? Wasn't she Miss
2001.
2001? Okay, 2001. So here's the thing. Next week, I'm going to have Mr. West 2003.
Mm.
I'm going to have Miss West 2001.
You know that? You know she was my wife in Bye Bye Birdie.
I did not know that, and we're going to talk about that because I remember her in Once Upon This Island when she played that as she was the
Can
wife in that one. So
can I
yes,
can I say can I give a list of the people we're gonna have on the show?
yeah, you can
Here
definitely do that.
here
So
is
yeah,
my list of people that we need on the show. We need the Lakita Bookers of the world on the show.
okay,
You know what I mean? I think we need the Lakita Bookers. I think it would be good if we could get the Beth Bosworths, the Mary Van Vliets. We need some of these state champion tennis players. We need
mm-hmm,
a Derek Norman episode. We need a Danny Norman episode.
mm-hmm. Yeah, we
We
still got
need
to
a
get the baseball coaches on. We need to get
we
them
need a
on.
look. I
Yeah,
want to put this out there.
yeah,
Um, some of the people at West, like we need a Philip Staples episode. We need a we need a Tom Carmine. This show is for Rebels. Stephen Harmon, Michael
mm-hmm.
Lynn was amazing. Terry Maples was amazing.
Big O
We
was awesome too.
Big
Yep,
O, Big O. There were guys with tears in their eyes when you
yeah,
talk about that Big O episode.
yeah.
The 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 the
Coach
Tommy
Giles,
Winton
Tommy
episode,
Winton. Yep. So yep.
the Tommy Winton episode, that was for the people that just, if you didn't see it, you know how like Marcus Dupree is talked about in college.
Mm-hmm.
He was on Marcus Dupree.
Yeah.
The guys like Stuart Oakes, guys like Michael Maddox, guys like Michael Monroe, who's been on the show.
Mm-hmm. Big Troy.
Todd Broyles,
Big Troy was on the show.
Big
So yeah.
Troy. How about Julian Miller Landreth, who now is one of the best real estate people? How about an Erica Dukes Mooney episode?
Oh,
How
I'd love
about
to
a
have Erica
beautiful,
Dukes.
vivacious Caitlin Greenwood? Like, you know what I'm saying? We have so many wonderful people, like
Mm-hmm.
Laura Eldridge. Laura
Mm-hmm.
Eldridge, what she's doing for nutrition.
Yeah.
Look, we are a lot of people that do great things at West, and we need to highlight all our rebels because you're a rebel forever.
That's right. And honestly, I was, Tinian is so excited to come on there, come on next week to talk about it and so forth. And what I was going to say was, I'm going to basically be the dunce of 2002 between the 2003 Mr. West and the 2001 Miss West. I'll be the dunce with the little spinner cap on or something like that because I
Dude,
didn't win
look
no
how menacing
superlatives.
you
So yeah.
look in the background, though.
Chad Haynes said he looks real in that picture. Like he said when they all came out, like he was like he looks mean, like and so forth. So, but I I love that picture, and the hair's coming back a little bit, so I'm hoping that I can do that hairstyle again and so forth like that. So, but it'd
Yeah,
be
yeah.
cool. So, but Tinian's going to be on next week at
Okay.
9:30, so we're going to be very excited. Talk about that time when you guys did Bye Bye Birdie. I want to talk about Once Upon This Island. I want to talk about her days with the cheerleader. I told her I can't wait to hear about your cause after you graduated because she's got a very
She's
talented
got a great
son.
cause.
Yeah, she's got a
Great
great
cause.
cause, and she's got a talented son that's going to be following. Through the West, playing basketball and football or what have you with a special
And
group of
think about
guys. So,
Tinian.
yeah.
Tinian, a lot of people don't know, like musically, she's a big reason why there were the Super Friends in Atlanta. She's a big reason why a lot of stuff got done radio wise, and she did music. And then you got to look at Barbara Reed. She was also a cheerleader. Her
Hmm.
other sister Trillia, Trillia's doing stuff phenomenal for people in this world. Like, I don't think people realize the greatness that lies within the people that come on this show.
Hmm.
And Tenny and Reed is one of those people that we had to be like. That's one of those ones you got to get on the show. You know what I'm saying? That's one of those
It's
ones you
taken
got.
literally a year to get people. I mean, like for example, we've tried to get Brandon Bell and AB on the show, Anthony Bennett. They've just been busy. And like I said, if we can get you on, we'd love to get you on. Honestly, so we don't hate here. So I mean, we do not. So yeah, yeah,
No, we definitely don't.
yeah.
So I had to go outside to.
No, you're good. No, you're totally good, buds.
Yeah, I
But
did.
you want to know something? I did want to, you did want to go, maybe 20 more minutes or something,
Yeah,
just
we
because I
can.
got to be up early and got to be at work at 8.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Or
But
15 if you got to be up. My bad.
15. Well, I did want to ask you something, man, because I
Hmm.
made my predictions for the bracket, but I want to run through the games and just see where your head's at and so
Yeah, let's
forth.
do it. Let's
What your
do it.
thoughts? So let's start tomorrow night. It's the first game on CBS between BYU and Alabama in the East region. What's your thoughts on that one, bud?
Alabama. I like Mark Sears, and that, and Oates. Oates is going to draw up something that they're not going to see and they're not going to be comfortable with. But BYU defensively, if they can really take over in the front court, you're probably going to see a closer game than what my estimate is.
Yeah, I thought Alabama was going to win this game because Alabama's got 6 players that score in double figures. BYU only has 2. So not
Yeah,
that BYU's not a bad team, but the
right.
thing is this is going to be a step up from Wisconsin, who they just played.
Hmm.
Like this is like Wisconsin on steroids, the way that Alabama plays offense. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
um, the other 7 o'clock game, or the other early game, as I should say, is going to be the Gators in Maryland over there in San Francisco. Both teams had to travel across the country in
Hmm.
short time. I mean, what
Yeah.
what do you think? Who's? I personally said I think Florida wins this game by 15 points. I think Florida got the wake up call they needed,
They needed that. They
and
did.
and they needed that. And I just think Florida is going to show why they're so much better than Maryland in the Big Ten. I could be wrong, but I think Florida wins handily tomorrow or tomorrow night.
I
Yes.
think Florida wins handily just because of how they play. They really. I like the way Clayton is on the
Oh,
perimeter, and I love Condon and like their front court. Everything they do, they're ready. You know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
Can I say something too, Per? If you watched that
Sure.
game against Connecticut the other night, there's been talk about how
Oh, let's
deep
talk
Florida.
about that.
Yeah, well, how deep Florida was.
Yeah,
But
they're
can I
deep.
tell you this? And I'm not trying to troll when I say this because I
Uh-uh.
respect Florida. I've seen them
Right.
play Tennessee and I've seen them play other teams. But I felt they were waiting for Clayton to make a play. And you can't do that in the NCAA tournament. And so
Uh-uh.
they were lucky he came through. But tomorrow, one of you guys got to freaking show your worth of why you're this deep, badass team. And I think they'll do it. But man, there were times where I felt nobody really wanted to take it over. And thank God they had Clayton, who was the best player on the court for either team last Sunday. So, yeah. But, because they could have been bounced. They could have been bounced. And here's the other thing too. I
That could have been
mentioned
me.
I mentioned too that Connecticut losing promptly closed the door on all the teams that we've talked about on this show for going for a three-peat. Obviously, our beloved West Rebels didn't do it. The Chiefs didn't do it. Alcoa fell short. Fulton basketball fell short. And finally, Connecticut. So all 5, the back-to-backs, did not complete the three-peat journey. So
That was
sorry.
so cool when you did, dude. We would see. That's why we got me and you are dope when we get back when we in our bag and
Yep.
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I
and I
feel
mentioned
so
that
bad.
earlier, so in
I
case you
would
go back
never
and
leave
watch
you
it.
hanging though. You know that,
Yeah, no,
right?
I know that. I know that. So
It
yeah,
was
yeah,
just man. I
yeah,
I, I said,
yeah.
hold on, what time is it? I said, oh God, get on there.
No, no, you're good, man. Yeah. Hey, listen, but real quick, if we want to
You know
talk
my
real quick
birthday
about,
weekend is crazy.
oh, of course, and I'm glad you got to celebrate it the way you needed to
There's no
celebrate it, how you
baby oil or
deserved it.
anything
So,
like that going on. There's no Diddy parties or nothing.
oh, they,
Shout out to Diddy.
yeah.
Shout out to Diddy though.
Hey,
We love Diddy. It's just my thing is, we grew up on Diddy, and it's like y'all really come on, man. Like it. My thing is, if we see tape on stuff, but that man he live his life like I don't. Who am I to judge? I've done some wrongful things in my life that are probably gonna come to. And you know what? you gotta own up to it. You gotta be an adult.
All I'm going to say is there's a lot of names that attended those parties that probably are trying to like, like stiff arm them. Oh, I never went, bullshit. You were
Yeah,
there. You were there partying. Come on. So, well, I
right.
did want to ask you real quick, what was your thoughts about Dan Hurley's emotional breakdown, tantrum? It's been called so many different things,
Mm-hmm.
that absurd the thing he shouted at the refs, and it is after 11:30, so I will say my one F bomb a week that I do or
Yeah,
what have you. He said Baylor, I hope the refs don't fuck you like they fucked us or whatever like that. I mean, he said that walking into the tunnel. This is a guy that's won back-to-back championships, man.
you
I
gotta you
mean,
gotta win with class. You gotta lose with
you
class.
got to. I mean, and
But
how do you say the refs?
if
The
you
refs didn't
if
make
you
that shot.
won
Clayton made it.
if you won back-to-back national championships, there are things that winners do that are different from what losers. And that
Yes.
was a loser moment by a winning coach.
Hmm.
See what I did? It was a losing
Yep.
moment by a winning coach.
Yep. Yep.
It's
Yeah.
sad,
And
but
and what about his outbursts all through the year, telling that referee, "Do you know who I am? Who are you? Honestly, who are you?"
like nobody care. We care about the score. We care about the
Yes.
play, sir. You have every right to poke your chest out, but it's also winning with like your father.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bob Hurley Sr.
Yeah. Like the legend of New Jersey high school basketball.
One of the
The legend.
one of the greatest
Yeah.
coaches, motivators, leader of young men we've ever seen in the New Jersey area. And you're from his cloth. And I get it, you want to do things your way, but it's the level of character that you hold as a coach. Because I'm an announcer, I can't say, oh man, we really stunk it up tonight. No, it's like we had some things that didn't work in our favor.
Hmm.
We had some things that didn't work in our favor because one, if we're not as prepared for the opposition, that's on me as a coach. I didn't prepare our guys and put them in position. You have to take ownership of the wins and the losses
Hmm. Yeah. And to
because
shed
yeah,
tears like that, and you just won two trophies. You would have made it look like you've lost them games. Like oh we didn't win no trophies. You're at a blue blood program that has a rich history that's won with three different coaches, including yourself.
yeah,
Kevin Ollie, Jim Calhoun, they won the others. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I don't get it, man. So, but anyway, moving on to the games for the teams that are still in the tournament. Obviously Duke and Arizona get it on 30 minutes after the BYU Alabama game. What's your thoughts on that one, by the way?
We already said BYU Alabama.
Oh, no, I said Duke Arizona plays 30 minutes after BYU Alabama. So, what's your thoughts on the
Well,
Duke
you
Arizona
you
games?
you do know that Arizona's trying to avenge a loss of a national championship game. And the
Yes.
way Richard Jefferson and Jay Williams have been talking on ESPN, that's what I love. Like, I was a big RJ fan. I love the Arizona team, but in that bracket that year, I actually was close to winning everything at West. I think I won the Boys and Girls Club at the Teen Center bracket.
Hmm.
But Bob Helms, we need to get Bob Helms on the show. Curry Helms, big shout out to them. I want to say I was in the top 5 in that bracket in school,
Mm,
in the
gotcha.
school bracket.
Did you pick Duke to win it that year? Because
I
that's that
did,
year that, yeah. I mean,
I
I mean,
did.
how could you not? I mean, they had two national
But
players of the year on that team.
but
So, yeah.
I did love, I'm a Justin Ravenel, who I do my podcast with, Rav and Tate on the Twitter Spaces. He said that I am a closet Arizona fan because of my love for Mike Bibby and those
And
blue
Miles
phone
Simon and
posit.
that team. Well, they were a great team. They were a
They were a
great team.
great team,
Yeah.
but I just loved the backcourt of Jason Terry, Miles Simon, and Mike Bibby, and
Hmm.
then Michael Dickerson. You know what I'm saying? Like the team was so loaded. But the '01 team that had Richard Jefferson, Gilbert. Arenas. You know, I love Agent Zero. I love,
Lauren Woods was on that team. Jason
Lauren Wood.
Gardner.
Michael
Michael Wright.
Wright. Michael
Yep.
Wright, R.I.P., who passed away.
Did he
Eugene
really?
Edgar.
Did he really die? When did he die?
Oh,
Oh, you just blew my mind. Shit. So
damn, yeah, Michael Wright's been.
I know Luke
But
Walton was a sixth man on that team. So
Luke
yeah.
Walton, Gene Edgerson.
And Eggerson. So yeah, see,
Edgerson.
here's the balloons in the background. I'm tired of it floating around. So,
But no, man, that was
yeah,
I think Duke has the best player in the country. But you want to know what? That team, I think Duke could win a national title.
yeah, they look good.
I like Con Canopal.
Oh yeah, and he's the guy. He's kind of like the forgotten guy of that group, man. Hey, wait a minute. Have you seen his mom? And she got three other boys coming through I mean, she played women's basketball. The father played men's basketball. So that's a family thing. Can I tell you this? Here's another guy. Here's another guy for Duke that nobody's talking about. Tyrese Proctor. He was unconscious from 3-point
Proctor.
range. So.
But they're just a big lineup, man.
6'5". Nobody's lower than 6'5".
My thing with Arizona is they can get in those droughts with Caleb Love, and they can get in those droughts with Bradley. And I think losing Boswell to Illinois hurt them more than they know.
Oh my God, yeah. And Boswell was a badass for them.
Boswell was amazing.
See, people don't remember. You know, they're talking about how Arizona beat Duke last year at Duke. Boswell was the dude that just Duke couldn't stay in front of. But I mean, I said this earlier in the show. I said this Duke team could beat last year's Duke team by 30 points, man. Let's be real. That Duke team last year was weak as shit. They were
very weak.
Filipowski, McCain. I mean, they were weak as hell. This team,
they were shining.
Like you said, they're long, they're mean, they shoot, they play defense. They like to play defense. I mean, who the hell likes to play defense? I mean, besides Tennessee and Houston and Duke, not many other teams do. But you need defense to win. So I've got Duke winning. But here's the other thing too. You mentioned this, how Jason Williams and RJ been going at it. Yeah. You know, Arizona did get their revenge 14 years ago when they beat the Kyrie Irving #1 seed Duke. And they ran them out of the building.
Crazy in that game.
Derek Williams, 93-77.
Was that Stanley Johnson on that team too?
I believe so. I believe he was. Yeah, but it was 93-77, 2011.
Was Stanley Johnson and Derek Williams, or was it just Derek Williams?
It might have just been Derek Williams, because I think Stanley Johnson graduated in 07 or 06, maybe.
No, I feel like we got, man, where is Shane? Shane, we love you, Shane.
Yeah, no, we miss Shane, so he brings it up. So, well, I asked a question before you jumped on. Has there ever been more than two teams from the same conference before? Because how it could set up, you could have Alabama, Tennessee, Florida versus Auburn in the Final Four. You potentially could. I don't think that's ever happened.
Do you understand what that would do for basketball in the SEC?
It would be the story. If there wasn't upsets, the story would be that the SEC was the dominant conference from start to finish. You know, I mean, I mentioned it like this, Two-Pair. If you want to talk about me bringing something, Duke is the only team that's not in the Big 12, Big 10, or SEC that's left in the Sweet 16. The SEC has almost half of the Sweet 16 still left with 7 teams. 7 teams!
Name the 7.
Ole Miss, Arkansas, who just came out of nowhere, Tennessee, Florida, Auburn, Alabama, and Kentucky. I mean, isn't that crazy? Like, that is just nuts to me.
Not surprising. They had how many teams? 15?
14. 14 got in out of 16 teams, and you still have half your field after, you know.
Could there have been a way 14 teams could have made it? I mean, to the Sweet 16?
No, because Vanderbilt would have played Alabama, and I believe what was the other one that? If Oklahoma had beaten UConn, Florida would have beaten Oklahoma. One of them would have moved on. So you could have technically had 12 potentially go. You could have had 12 potentially make it. So, but not all 14. So yeah. So we agree that probably a good game. I mean, I think Duke Arizona is going to come down to the end. I think Duke just has a little bit more. The other game tomorrow night, Texas Tech and Arkansas, which is kind of like the game that's not very talked about. But here's the thing. Arkansas is there though, two pair. Like, how the hell, Jonas Adu? We were clowning those guys a week ago, and they're
They just
there.
not, bro. Fucking. Let me say this.
Yeah, and Patino fucked up, but keep going. So yeah,
I just don't think they were prepared.
no, they
If
underestimated him.
your
Dead.
best player has a horrible game, and you bench your best player.
I don't care if he was 3 for 40. You leave him in there, man.
He's your
Honestly,
was he not the Big East Player of the Year?
Big East Player of the Year. He got you to even where you were at, and you did that to him.
You got to find ways to get that guy to the free throw line. You got to, as a coach, you got to see he's off. You got to talk to him and say, it ain't your night.
Mm-hmm.
See, get to the line. We're going to do some plays where you can get some late. He didn't see the ball go in but 3 times out of 17 or 8.
Can I ask you a question, too, Per? I want you to answer this honestly. I want you to answer this honestly.
Yeah, definitely.
Rapid question.
Mm-hmm.
Does Bruce Pearl put Janai Broom on the bench? Does John Shire put Cooper Flagg on the bench?
No, sir.
Does Mark Godfrey, or sorry, not Mark Godfrey. Does Oates put Sears on the bench? No. Does Rick put Zakai Ziegler or Lanier on the bench? No. You want to know why? Because unless they have 5 fouls, their ass is going to be in that game till the end to win you that. I mean, honestly, I don't care if you're down by 7 with like 10 seconds left. They're in the game to try to do something. So yeah. And Patino, I mean, and then Patino goes to his son's game the next day and looked like he got kicked in the nuts. I'm not trying to be mean, but he just looked like he was just standing there with a scarf on, and I was like, man, you looked old. You looked old and beaten. Honestly, I hate to be mean that way. So,
that's
but
funny.
but let me ask you this: so, do you got Arkansas or do you got Texas Tech, who's kind of been like?
I like Toppin. I'm a Toppin fan. Dude, if Toppin comes at, I think Adu is going to catch the Toppin flu. He caught the Edie flu last year, and probably Jonas is watching this, and he's probably been saying, you've been, dude, you left Tennessee. I don't,
I don't think Texas Tech's going to underestimate Arkansas. I think Texas Tech is going to get it done. So, yeah. All right, now talk about Friday's game. Tennessee going to get it done against Kentucky. They have to. I mean, and this is what I said.
It'd be bad if they ended a season where they were the number 1 team for a lot of weeks, the last undefeated team to lose. If you don't find something in those 2 games before, it wasn't meant to be. And if they do, I think they win. But I'm gonna be honest. If they lose, it's like, well, I mean, you couldn't solve it the first 2 times. Why would we think anything different? But when I say Rick, Jemai, Zakai, Chaz, Igor, Akpora, Justin Gainey, Cade Phillips, I love the rotation.
They played good.
Like Jemai Meshack, we need Jemai Meshack to know that he can shoot the ball. Please shoot it. Please. Yeah. Please shoot the ball, Jemai. Yeah. Like you, and then Dolan, was it Stone Dunbar? One of the toughest players. I feel like you got to get him more minutes. He's one of the strongest and toughest players we have on our team. We have to find Dunbar more minutes.
You got to, especially during this tournament, because there's going to be some tired legs out there. The way the physicality of that game is going to go. I'm going to say this much. I predicted flat out. I said, and I quote, that if you told me at the beginning of the year that Tennessee will lose to Kentucky twice, but it was all worth it for them to beat their rival to get to the Elite Eight, I'll take it every day, 3 times on Sunday.
Because you know what? I really do feel like we're a Final Four team.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah. And I'm going to tell you this. There's a possibility, and I mentioned this while you weren't on the show earlier. I mentioned whoever wins the Tennessee-Kentucky game, there's going to be a lot of orange and blue there in Indiana. The committee did Houston no favors, 2 pair. Purdue is an hour and a half away from Indianapolis with West Lafayette. That's going to be virtually a home game for Purdue. And don't think who sticks around from that Kentucky-Tennessee game ain't going to root against Houston. They ain't. So don't be surprised if it's another Tennessee-Purdue matchup in the Elite Eight. And they need to get over
It
that.
could be Tennessee Houston though.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Tennessee-Houston with a gun to my head. But here's the thing. I
Houston
think
to me,
Tennessee's better than Houston. I think first
Houston
one to
is
70 wins.
Houston is good, but
They don't have offense.
no,
No.
they lock up. And you know the thing is with Kelvin Sampson teams, they're gonna get you defensively and beat you up on the boards. I think, man, if Tennessee doesn't win it this year, it's kind of like, when is the year? They've had too
Mm-hmm.
many great teams with
Yeah.
Ball. Like the 2019 team,
Yeah.
like he's had some teams. Like teams,
Yeah.
James.
Yeah. I know. I know. I'm going to throw this out there. Just going to throw
Mm,
this out there. I think that Tennessee gets to the Final Four this year. It would be a monumental accomplishment. I think they do. I think
Look,
they really do.
if they
I'm
get
not saying that as a grab. I'm
CFP,
saying that for real. So
if they get to a CFP, won a college national championship, and they won a college national championship, and back, we will be the everything school then.
yeah.
'Cause, like, we got a baseball title, we get a basketball title.
And that baseball team's looking like they're going back to back, to be honest with you. They're whipping some ass. I mean,
It
they
is
are. So,
serious.
yeah, they are.
And we got the Smokies coming up.
I know. So, yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, it's time. I mean, it's time. So, but yeah.
Hey,
So,
can
but
we
let me ask you this. Let
can we
me ask you
West
this.
Side Math real quick?
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna do that real quick. Yeah, let me just let you get these last two games in real
Sure.
quick. So you agree it'll be Houston versus Tennessee in the Elite Eight? Is that what you
Yes.
think, right? All right, then Ole Miss, Michigan State. What do you got in that one? Because Chris Beard's doing a hell of a job.
Can I give a quick shout out to Deshaun Tate,
Yeah.
my cousin, but he said all Tates are born differently. My
Uh
man,
huh.
he is a big Sparty fan. He does incredible commentary work. Shout out to my man C Hendo out there in Dallas Fort Worth for what he's working on and working and working and working. So I talked to DT, and I feel like Michigan State might win, but it's gotta be how their bench and their underclassmen perform.
Gotcha.
Look
Gotcha.
at that
Oh,
West High math.
there's that
West
West
High
High math. So
here.
yeah. And then finally, Auburn versus Michigan. You know, Jalen Rose was even saying that this is what he said. He said that if Michigan and Michigan State meet in the Elite Eight, all Fab Five are going to be there to support Michigan if that happens. So if Michigan
Fab
beats
Five is to
Auburn
me.
and Michigan State beats Ole Miss
Mhm.
in Atlanta, the Fab Five will be there to watch Michigan try to knock off their rival
Can I
Sparty.
can I brag on the Fab Five real
Of
quick?
course, yeah, man. So
So
shoot.
I'm a North Carolina, Tennessee guy, but as a young kid, um, the Fab Five mean everything to me, just because I saw myself on the court.
Hmm.
Like Ray Jackson was me. Like, you know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? Jimmy King was me. Jalen Rose was me. Chris Webber was me. Jawan Howard on the block was me. Um, no, I wasn't as great as them, but as an African American kid going to school, you emulated what you saw. I emulated UNLV 90 because of Anderson Hunt and
Hmm.
Larry Johnson and Greg Anthony and Stacey Augman and David Butler and Moses Scurry. I come from that cloth.
Hmm.
And when I see the Fab Five, it was it was something that I can't explain, that they raised me. Like,
Hmm.
I'm a product of the Fab Five. I read Mitch Albom's book, The Fab Five, millions of times. Steve Fisher, the coach, assistant coach Brian Dutcher, you know what I'm saying? Assistant coach Perry Watson. I was so gung ho, Michigan, everything. Like
Hmm.
me and Jeremy Pegas. I remember Jeremy Pegas and Patrick Goins. They wanted to go to Michigan, and I was like, bro, I want to go to Michigan too. I had the Chris Webber jersey, the Warriors jersey. Shout out to my uncle Ken for letting me get it for my birthday. But those dudes raised us. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I remember when North Carolina beat them and Chris called that timeout, and I didn't even celebrate the North Carolina win because the North Carolina team had one of my favorite players ever in college, and that was Brian Reese and Donald Williams.
Mm.
And rest in peace to Eric Montross.
Yeah, yeah, he was the
But
center. So,
they,
there goes a balloon.
they were everything to us, man. I had to give them props. Had to give them props. You know how I am about the Fab Five.
Oh well, let me just tell you this: the Fab Five, man, that's never be replicated, never be
Yeah,
duplicated. You know, like I mean,
I,
the fact that they did that, like, it will never be done again, man. I mean, you could get the five freshmen, like you get five guys from the top 10 or whatever. Could they really play that cohesively at their positions and share the
bro,
ball? No.
Ray Jackson,
Yeah. I mean,
lockdown. He'll hit a shot. Like Jimmy fucking King.
yeah, and they came from all over the country. Texas,
Yeah,
there was a guy there
so
in Michigan. I mean, they came from all over. So, yeah,
it is. I, I
yeah,
I I say that, you know what I'm saying, Jalen Rose. Thank you for helping kids believe in themselves.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, uh, I get emotional about it because, being able to see these guys, and we're doing a podcast for the school that we give the biggest resource, and Rebels with a Cause Math, 100 parents to donate $30 a day for
Hmm.
5 days. That's what we're going to raise. And shout out to the Rebel Foundation. Shout out to Bo Sutton. Shout out to all you guys that are doing what you do as parents and as a booster club. My bad, I'm spitting out here.
Oh, you're all right. You're all right.
I had a gum in my own.
You're
Sorry,
good.
but no. And I started doing this math because of what Tommy Winton is doing on the financial side. You know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
Rebels math is key, and we're gonna put it up every episode
Oh,
for you
yeah.
guys to understand that you are a walking bankroll of parents. There's more than 100 parents that go to West.
Oh, God,
We
yeah.
did simple math for the 100 parents that are involving their kids in scholastic student activities, student athletes. You have $1 million because Rebels with a Cause, we're about the numbers. You do numbers, I do
Mhm.
numbers.
Yep.
Shane does numbers.
Yep.
And we want to really keep Shane's family in our prayers.
Yep. Yep. We
Please,
do.
please. Rebels with a Cause, it's bigger than us. And
It's a
some,
brotherhood.
I'm
It's a
saying,
brotherhood. So, yeah.
I can lose sight of that because, you know what I'm saying, it was my birthday. I want some bread. I want, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to see the.
Here, hold on one second. Hold on one second. Just so we're good. Hold on. It is after midnight. Who gives a shit? But I'm just saying. So there we go. So, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm glad you had a great birthday too, Perrin. And honestly,
I'm
I'm a
so sorry, though. I'm
oh, please don't apologize. You got to hang with brothers and people, and it seemed like you had a good time reminiscing. And you should never apologize for that because be
no,
blessed
because
that you could do that. Be blessed you could even do that. Honestly, so.
dude, I felt like I left you hanging. I was looking at
Ah, I'm all right. I'm good, bud. So shoot. Hey, listen. Here's the thing. It's going to be an amazing Sweet 16 in Elite Eight.
so episode Wednesday or
Yeah,
Thursday.
we're gonna do Wednesday at 9:30. Tinian's all set, so 9:30 Wednesday,
Not
and she's already got the link. I'll set the link up, and we'll be promoting the hell out of the show.
okay.
But she wants to talk some football too, so she's gonna talk some football. We'll talk some basketball. We'll make our predictions for the Final Four. One last shout out, by the way. The
Keep him.
Lady Vols, man, the Lady Vols did great this past weekend. I hope they shocked the world and beat Texas. I mean, they almost beat them when Coach was
Magic
having her baby, so she could
football
do it
player.
this time. Now she's coaching them. So
Magic
yeah,
is a hell of a player at Texas.
yeah.
I just know if we can get it rolling with the ladies that we have, like Spear,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jewel,
Jewel. Yeah.
Jewel.
Yeah. I
Crown.
mean, I just don't understand why they
Here's
laid
what
such an
we
egg at the end.
say:
So.
Jewel Spears.
Mm-hmm.
Got crown the Jewel. Ooh.
Yep.
Rebels with a cause giving nicknames out here, but not.
We got nicknames. We got everything. So I hated to see Juju go down too. Juju going down
Man,
sucked. Hated
no,
seeing that. So
you hate
yeah.
seeing. But I want to say this, James, man. you really have really shown like for us doing a show about high school kids and making them, they are the talk of the town now because they have their own podcast.
Yep.
Like, how
Yep.
cool is that? That you get to have a podcast where we talk about the baseball team, the volleyball team, the lacrosse team. That
Mm-hmm.
you get that all with us,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then we talk about other sports because the way they cover sports in this city, you only hear one team. We're giving you all the teams.
All the teams, all the teams. And we're going to go live. We're going to be doing a live show from the baseball and spring football again. We're going to do that from our house this time. I mean, we'll be packing it on the road. We're going to
And
have great episodes. So,
we might even do tailgating. We might even get food. I
yeah.
think we're gonna, because it's our guys. We might even get pizzas.
Yeah, we need to talk more about that with the other guys to see who wants to be involved in that and show up, and just any old ball players come out and have a good
You
time.
know
So,
what? That's
yeah.
what we do. Like, let's put it out there.
Yep.
Hey, look, all former football, basketball, whatever sports you played, come out and support these guys.
Yep. Yep.
Alum- this alumni spring game. That's what we
Al-
need to do. It.
yeah,
Alumni spring game
absolutely.
tailgate. The alumni
Absolutely.
spring game tailgate by Rebels with a Cause.
Yep, and I'll see if we can get a definite date of when they're going to play that against Science Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Science Hill is going to come and scrimmage West football, so yeah,
Gonna be a big one. Like
big one at Bill Wilson Field.
yeah,
So yeah.
great show, man.
Great show, man. Listen, close us out like you always do, baby. Throw that W up wherever you're
I
at.
can't throw the W up right
Oh,
now.
you can't. Well, here's the. I'll throw the W up for you. Enjoy that Sweet 16 Elite Eight. Two pair. Close us out, baby.
Hey,
So.
man, this is Rebels with a Cause. I want to give a big shout out to my man James. He held it down for a whole hour. His wife has said he's the sexiest man on the planet, and that's how we're gonna end the show. I'll talk to you guys later. Happy birthday, James. Go home and get laid.
Happy
Everybody
birthday,
go
Two
home and
Pair.
get laid. No, I'm sorry. Wait.